Humans looked up at them and wondered if they were alone. On that cold morning in March 2247, they got their answer. And it was not the answer they wanted. Lieutenant Hyon was the first to see it. He was working the night shift at the Global Defense Station in Seoul when his screen lit up with strange signals. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe a satellite had broken. Maybe the computer had a problem. But then he saw the shapes appearing near Jupiter. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. "Sir," Hyon said, his voice shaking, "you need to see this." Admiral Taeho was sleeping in his quarters when the call came. He was an old man now, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 40 years in the military, and he had seen many things. But nothing could prepare him for what appeared on his screen. A massive fleet of alien ships was moving toward Earth. The largest ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It was dark and shaped like a blade, and it moved through space like a predator hunting its prey. Within hours, the whole world knew. Every television, every phone, every computer showed the same images. The alien fleet was real, and it was coming. People ran through the streets. Some prayed. Some cried. Some just stood and watched the sky, waiting for the end. The first message came 6 hours after the fleet appeared. Lieutenant Hyon was the one who translated it. His hands were shaking as he read the words aloud to the room full of generals and leaders. "People of Earth," the message said, "we are the Valorix Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed civilizations older than your sun. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to surrender. If you do not, we will take what we want by force. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact." The room was silent. Admiral Taeho stood by the window, looking up at the sky. He said nothing. The next day, the aliens sent another message. But this time, it was not just words. It was a video. High Commander Draven, the leader of the Valorix fleet, appeared on every screen on Earth. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that showed no warmth. Behind him stood his generals, including a massive creature called Torek, who was known across the galaxy for his love of destruction. "Humans," Draven said, his voice cold and calm. "We have studied your species. We have looked at your weapons. And we must say, we are very disappointed." He waved his hand and images appeared on the screen. Human tanks. Human jets. Human missiles. The Valorix generals behind him started to laugh. Torek laughed the loudest. "These are your weapons?" Draven continued. "Nuclear bombs? Guns that shoot metal? This is what you plan to fight us with?" He shook his head slowly. "We have shields that can stop stars from burning us. We have weapons that can crack planets in half. And you want to fight us with these toys?" The laughter grew louder. Across the galaxy, the broadcast was being watched by hundreds of other species. Many of them had been conquered by the Valorix. They watched with sad eyes, knowing what was coming. They had seen this before. The Valorix always laughed before they killed. "You have 72 hours, Draven said. "Use them to say goodbye to your loved ones. When we arrive, there will be no mercy." The screen went black dot in Seoul. Admiral Taeho watched the broadcast with a face that showed nothing. His officers were afraid. Some were angry. General Dong-Su, an old veteran who had fought in 3 wars, slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot just sit here," Dong-Su growled. "We must fight. We must show them that humans do not surrender." "And how do you suggest we do that?" Another officer asked. "You heard them. Our weapons cannot even scratch their shields. We would be sending our soldiers to die for nothing." The argument grew louder. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to run and hide. But Admiral Tahoe remained silent through all of it. He just stood by the window, watching the sky. Finally, Captain Yuna walked into the room. She was young, only 35, but she was one of the smartest weapons experts on Earth. She had spent the last 10 years working on a secret project, something that very few people knew about. She walked straight to Admiral Tahoe and whispered something in his ear. For the first time that day, the Admiral smiled. It was a small smile, but it was there. "Everyone, please leave the room," Tahoe said quietly. "Captain Yuna and I need to talk." When they were alone, Yuna looked at the old Admiral with serious eyes. "Sir, is Project Warang ready?" Tahoe nodded slowly. "It has been ready for 3 years. We were hoping we would never need to use it. And now?" The Admiral turned back to the window. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was red and orange, like fire. Somewhere out there, beyond the clouds, an alien fleet was waiting to destroy everything he loved. "Now," Tahoe said, "we show them why humans have survived for so long. They are laughing at the wrong weapons, Captain. They looked at our missiles and our bombs. They never thought to ask what else we might have built." Yuna nodded. "Should I begin preparations?" "Yes, but tell no one. Let them laugh. Let them think we are weak. When the time comes, they will learn the truth." That night, while the world panicked and leaders argued, a small team of engineers worked deep beneath the mountains of Korea. They worked in silence, preparing something that the aliens had never seen. Something that their advanced sensors could not detect. Something old and simple and terrifying. High Commander Draven sat in his chair on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion. He was drinking wine and laughing with his generals. In 72 hours, Earth would belong to them. Another easy victory. Another primitive species crushed beneath their boots. He had no idea that his death was already being prepared by a species he considered nothing more than insects. He had no idea that his empire was about to meet the one thing it could not conquer: human stubbornness. The meeting was held on a space station near Mars. It was neutral ground, a place where neither side had an advantage. At least, that was what the Valorics said. But everyone knew the truth. The Valorics had all the advantages. They had the ships. They had the weapons. They had the power. Humans had nothing but hope and pride. Admiral Tahoe led the human delegation. Lieutenant Hyan walked beside him, ready to translate. General Dong-Su insisted on coming too, even though he was old and his legs hurt from too many years of fighting. When someone suggested he stay behind, he just laughed. "I did not survive 3 wars to watch my planet kneel to some gray-skinned fish," the old general said. "I will look these aliens in the eye. And if today is my last day, then I will die standing." The space station was cold and dark. Valoric soldiers lined the hallways, watching the humans with hungry eyes. They were tall and strong, with armor that glowed with strange energy. Each one carried a plasma rifle that could melt through steel like butter. The humans walked past them in silence, their heads held high. The meeting room was large and empty, except for a long table in the middle. High Commander Draven was already there, sitting in a chair that looked like a throne. He did not stand when the humans entered. He did not even look at them. He just kept staring at his fingernails, as if they were more interesting than the fate of an entire planet. General Torak stood behind him, smiling. Beside Torak was a female Valorix named Mira. She was an envoy, a diplomat. Her eyes were different from the others. They were not cruel or cold. They were curious. "Please, sit," Draven said, still not looking up. "Let us finish this quickly. I have other worlds to conquer." Admiral Tahoe sat down calmly. His face showed nothing. No fear, no anger. Just patience. "High Commander, Taiho said. "We are here to discuss peace." Draven finally looked up. His black eyes stared at the human admiral like he was staring at an insect. "Peace?" he repeated. "There is no peace to discuss. There is only surrender. Your species will serve the Valorix Empire. Your planet will be emptied of its resources. Your people will work in our mines and factories until they die. These are our terms." The room was silent. "And if we refuse?" Taiho asked. Draven smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "If you refuse, we will burn your cities one by one. We will kill millions of your people every hour until you change your mind. We have done this before, human. Many times. No species has ever refused us twice." General Dong Su made a sound of disgust. "You call yourselves conquerors. I call you cowards. You attack only those who cannot fight back. You laugh at the weak and run from the strong." Torak stepped forward, his massive fists clenched. "You dare to insult us, old man? I have killed millions with these hands. I have destroyed worlds. What have you done?" Dong Su did not back down. "I have buried my friends. I have held my dying soldiers in my arms. I have won battles that everyone said were impossible. You think killing makes you strong? Killing is easy. Living with what you have done is hard. You know nothing about true strength." For a moment, Torak looked like he wanted to tear the old general apart. But Draven raised his hand, and Torak stepped back. "Your bravery is amusing," Draven said. "But bravery will not save you. Let me show you why." He waved his hand, and soldiers brought in human weapons. A rifle, a grenade, a small missile. They placed them on the table. "These are your best weapons," Draven said. "Watch." One of his soldiers stepped forward and activated a personal shield. It glowed blue around his body. Another soldier picked up the rifle and fired at him. The bullets hit the shield and fell to the ground like raindrops. The grenade exploded against it but did nothing. Even the missile just bounced off and crashed into the wall. The Valorix laughed. Torak laughed the loudest. "Your weapons are useless," Draven said. "Your technology is 1,000 years behind ours. You cannot even scratch us. So please, Admiral, tell me, how exactly do you plan to fight?" Admiral Taiho watched the whole demonstration without changing his expression. When it was over, he simply nodded. "That was very impressive," he said quietly. "Then you will surrender?" "No," Draven frowned. "No? Did you not see what just happened? Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your ships are slow and weak. You have nothing." Taiho leaned forward slightly. "High Commander, I have learned something in my many years of war. The loudest man in the room is usually the most afraid. Those who boast the most often fall the hardest. You have shown me your shields. You have shown me your weapons. But you have not shown me anything that truly frightens me." The room went cold. Draven's eyes narrowed. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human." "Perhaps both," Taiho said. "But I will tell you this. If you attack Earth, you will regret it. Not today, not tomorrow, but one day you will remember this moment, and you will wish you had listened." The negotiations ended. There was nothing more to say. The Valorix gave humanity 24 more hours to surrender. Then they would begin the attack. As the human delegation left, Envoy Myra followed Lieutenant Hyan into the hallway. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, then spoke quickly and quietly. "Young human," she said, "I have studied your species. I have read your history. You are violent and illogical and unpredictable. But I found something in your records that concerns me." Hyan looked at her carefully. "What did you find?" "References to weapons that our scanners could not identify. Secret projects with strange names. Things that do not match your technology level." She paused. "What are you hiding?" Hyan said nothing. He just smiled. Mira felt a chill run through her body. She had seen many species face the Valorics. All of them had been afraid. All of them had begged for mercy. But this human was not afraid. He was smiling. "Young human," she whispered. "What are you planning?" Before Hyan could answer, General Dong-Su called from down the hallway. "Lieutenant, we are leaving." Hyan turned to follow his general. But before he left, he looked back at Mira one last time. "You conquered species who thought logically," he said. "Species who calculated their chances and surrendered when they could not win. But humans are different, Envoy. We do not calculate. We do not surrender. We fight until we cannot fight anymore, and then we fight some more. Your empire has never faced anything like us." He walked away, leaving Mira standing alone in the cold hallway. That night, she lay awake in her quarters, thinking about the human's words. For the first time in her long career, she felt something she had never felt before: fear. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, there was a secret. It had been hidden there for more than 10 years, waiting for a day that everyone hoped would never come. Now that day was here. Captain Yuna walked through the underground base with tired eyes. She had not slept in 3 days. None of them had. There was too much work to do and too little time. The countdown to the Valoric's attack was running out, and everything had to be perfect. The base was enormous. It stretched for kilometers under the rock, filled with machines and computers and hundreds of workers. They moved like ants, each one doing their small part in something much bigger than themselves. At the center of it all was Project Warang. Admiral Taiho stood in front of it, looking up. Even he, who had seen so much in his long life, could not help but feel small. The weapon was beautiful in a terrible way. It was a railgun, but not like any railgun humans had ever built before. It was massive, stretching nearly a kilometer long, made of the strongest metals on Earth, and beside it, waiting to be loaded, was the ammunition. They called it the Hammer of Dangan, after the legendary founder of Korea. It was a rod of pure tungsten, 20 meters long and 3 meters wide. No explosives, no chemicals, no radiation, just metal, simple, heavy, old. "Will it work?" Captain Yuna asked. Standing beside the Admiral. Taiho was quiet for a moment. "The Valorics have shields that can stop plasma. They can stop lasers. They can stop nuclear explosions. Their technology is designed to counter advanced weapons, energy signatures, radiation bursts, all the things that modern civilizations use to fight." He pointed at the tungsten rod. "But this is not advanced. This is ancient. This is just a rock, Captain. A very big, very fast rock. Their shields are not designed to stop something so simple. They never expected anyone to attack them with the same technology their ancestors used 1,000,000 years ago." Yuna looked at the weapon with new eyes. "We are going to beat them with physics. Basic physics. Mass times velocity." "Yes," Taiho said. "The Valorics looked at our bombs and our missiles and laughed. They thought those were our best weapons. They never asked what else we might have built. They never wondered why humans have survived so long, even though we spent most of our history killing each other." He turned to face her. "The answer is simple. We are very, very good at finding new ways to destroy things. When one weapon stops working, we build a better one. When our enemies learn to block our attacks, we find new ways to attack. It is what we do. It is who we are." Above ground, the world was in chaos. The news showed images of people crying in the streets. Leaders gave speeches about hope and courage, but their voices shook with fear. Many had already given up. They were writing goodbye letters to their families, waiting for the end. But not everyone had surrendered their hope. In cities across the world, People gathered to watch the sky together. They held hands and sang songs and refused to hide. If this was going to be their last day, they wanted to face it standing up. In Tokyo, an old woman lit a candle in her window. In London, children drew pictures of Earth and hung them in their schools. In New York, a crowd gathered in Times Square, watching the stars and waiting. They did not know about Project Warang. They did not know that a secret weapon was being prepared to save them. They just knew that they were human, and humans did not give up easily. Back in the underground base, Captain Yuna found a quiet corner and sat down. She was exhausted. Her body was shaking from too much coffee and too little sleep. In a few hours, everything would be decided. Either the weapon would work, or humanity would fall. Admiral Taiho found her there, sitting alone in the dark. "Captain," he said gently, "you should rest." "I cannot," she replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the Valorix fleet. I see them burning our cities. I see everyone I love dying." She looked up at him with red eyes. "What if it does not work, Admiral? What if we fail?" Taiho sat down beside her. He was quiet for a long moment, thinking. "When I was young," he finally said, "my grandfather told me a story. He said that long ago, Korea was invaded by a much larger country. Everyone said we would lose. Everyone said we should surrender. But we did not. We fought with everything we had. We lost many battles. We lost many people. But in the end, we survived. Do you know why?" Yuna shook her head. "Because we refused to believe we were beaten. Even when all hope was lost, we kept fighting. And somehow, we won." He put his hand on her shoulder. "That is what humans do, Captain. We fight, even when it is hopeless. Even when everyone says we cannot win. We fight because giving up is not in our nature." Yuna wiped her eyes and nodded. "Then let us fight." Far above Earth, the human flagship Baekdu moved silently through space. It was small compared to the Valorix ships. It was old and slow and carried only a few hundred crew members. But hidden inside its cargo bay was the hammer of Dangan, waiting for its moment. The Valorix fleet did not notice the little ship hiding behind the moon. They were too busy celebrating their upcoming victory. On the bridge of the Dominion, High Commander Draven was drinking wine and laughing with his generals. In a few hours, Earth would fall. Another easy conquest. Another name added to their list of victories. General Torak was already planning the attack. He would target the largest cities first. Burn them slowly. Make the humans watch their world die piece by piece. That was his favorite part of war. The fear in his enemies' eyes as they realized there was no hope. None of them noticed the small ship moving into position. None of them saw the weapon being loaded. None of them knew that their deaths were already being prepared by a species they considered primitives. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of the Baekdu, watching the Valorix fleet in the distance. His face was calm, but his heart was beating fast. In a few hours, he would give the order that would decide the fate of humanity. Either they would win, or they would die trying. He opened a channel to all Earth forces. His voice was quiet but strong. "This is Admiral Taiho. In a few hours, we will face the greatest threat humanity has ever known. Some of you are afraid. I understand. I am afraid too. But I want you to remember something. We are human. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We have walked on the moon and built machines that can think. We are small and weak compared to the universe, but we are still here. And we will still be here tomorrow." He took a deep breath. "Whatever happens today, fight. Fight for your families. Fight for your homes. Fight because you are human, and that is what we do. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We fight." He closed the channel and turned to face the stars. The countdown had begun. The countdown reached 0. High. Commander Draven stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, and smiled. He looked at Earth through the massive windows, blue and green and beautiful. Soon it would be red and black, burning under Valoric's fire. Another world conquered. Another species crushed. Begin the attack, he ordered. Start with the largest cities. I want them to watch their civilization die. General Torek grinned. With pleasure, Commander. The Valoric's fleet powered up their weapons. Massive plasma cannons hummed with energy. Missiles locked onto targets. Bombers prepared to launch. It was a machine of death, ready to destroy everything in its path. Across Earth, billions of people watched the sky and waited. In Seoul, Lieutenant Hines stood with his family, holding his mother's hand. In London, the old woman kept her candle burning in the window. In New York, the crowd in Times Square went silent. They all knew what was coming. They all knew they might not survive the next hour. Then, suddenly, every screen on Earth flickered. Admiral Taeho's face appeared, broadcasting from somewhere in space. "Hi, Commander Draven," the old admiral said, his voice calm and steady. "This is Admiral Taeho of Earth's United Defense Fleet. I am giving you one final warning. Withdraw your fleet now, or face the consequences." On the Dominion, the Valorics burst into laughter. Draven nearly spilled his wine. He was laughing so hard. Torax slapped his knee and howled with joy. Even the ordinary soldiers on the bridge were laughing. "Warning?" Draven said, still chuckling. "You are warning us? Oh, human, this is wonderful. Please, tell me more. What consequences? Will you throw more of your little bullets at us? Will you launch more of your pathetic missiles?" He leaned forward, his black eyes shining with amusement. "We have conquered 1,000 worlds, Admiral. We have destroyed civilizations that could create stars. You are nothing but insects with delusions of importance. Your warning means nothing. Your threats are meaningless. In 1 hour, your planet will burn, and there is nothing you can do to stop it." Admiral Taeho did not respond to the mockery. His face remained calm. "You were warned," he said simply. Then he turned to someone off-screen. "Captain Yuna, fire." On the Baekdu, Captain Yuna took a deep breath. Her finger hovered over the button that would change everything. She thought about her parents back in Bizen. She thought about the children in Tokyo, drawing pictures of Earth. She thought about every human who had ever lived and died, and fought for survival. For Earth, she whispered. She pressed the button. The railgun fired. There was no flash. No explosion. No beam of light. The hammer of Dangan simply launched into space at 15% the speed of light. It was moving so fast that it was invisible to the naked eye. One moment it was in the cargo bay. The next moment it was gone. The Valoric sensors did not detect it. Their shields did not activate. Their computers did not register any threat. Why would they? They were designed to stop plasma and lasers and nuclear weapons. They were designed to stop energy and radiation and heat. They were not designed to stop a simple piece of metal moving very, very fast. The tungsten rod hit the Dominion exactly in the middle. It punched through the shields like they were not there. It tore through the hull like paper. It traveled from one end of the 3-kilometer ship to the other in less than a second, leaving destruction in its path. Reactors exploded. Fuel ignited. The entire ship began to tear itself apart. On the bridge, Draven had exactly 2 seconds to realize what was happening. 2 seconds to feel the ship shaking beneath his feet. 2 seconds to see the fire coming toward him. 2 seconds to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. Then the bridge exploded, and High Commander Draven ceased to exist. The Dominion split in half. The 2 pieces drifted apart, burning and dying in the cold emptiness of space. 3 kilometers of advanced alien engineering, destroyed by a piece of metal smaller than most buildings. The Valorix fleet stopped. Every ship froze in place. Every weapon powered down. Every soldier stared at their screens in disbelief. They had not seen what hit them. Their sensors showed nothing. No energy signature. No radiation. No heat. The flagship had simply exploded for no reason. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The entire fleet was paralyzed with shock. Then Admiral Taiho's voice came through the communication channels again. "That was one shot," he said calmly. "We have more. Leave now or join your commander." On Earth, confusion turned to hope. People stared at their screens, trying to understand what had happened. The giant ship that was supposed to destroy them was gone. Just like that. One moment it was there, and the next moment it was fire and debris. In Seoul, Lieutenant Hines started to laugh. He could not help it. The laughter came from deep inside him, from a place where all the fear and stress and hopelessness had been building for days. His mother looked at him with worried eyes, but then she saw the news. She saw the destroyed flagship, and she started laughing too. Across the world, the same thing happened. As the truth spread, the fear turned to joy. People hugged each other in the streets. They cried and laughed and screamed. They had been so sure they were gonna die. And now, somehow, they were still alive. On the bike too, Captain Yuna stared at her screens with wide eyes. "Direct hit," she whispered. "Enemy flagship destroyed." Admiral Taiho nodded slowly. His hands were shaking. He had not been sure would work. None of them had been sure. But it had worked. The arrogant alien commander, who had laughed at human weapons, was now floating in pieces through space. General Dongsu, watching from Earth, poured himself a drink with trembling hands. He raised his glass to the sky. "They laughed at our weapons," he said to the empty room. "They thought we were primitives. They forgot that we built empires with swords and conquered nature with fire. We have always been killers. We just got better at it." The remaining Valorix ships slowly began to retreat. They did not understand what had happened. They did not know how the humans had done it. All they knew was that their unbeatable flagship had been destroyed by a single attack that their technology could not even detect, for the first time in the history of the Valorix Empire. They ran. On the bike too, Admiral Taiho sat down heavily in his chair. He was exhausted. The weight of everything he had carried for the past days was finally lifting. They had won. Against all odds, against an enemy with superior technology and overwhelming numbers. They had won. Captain Yuna approached him with tears in her eyes. "We did it, sir. We actually did it." Taiho looked at her and managed a tired smile. "No, Captain. Humanity did it. We just pressed the button." He looked out the window at the retreating Valorix fleet. They were running. The conquerors of 1,000 worlds were running from a species they had called primitives. "Let them run," he said quietly. "Let them tell the galaxy what happened here today. Let them tell everyone that humans are not to be underestimated. We may be young. We may be primitive. But we are survivors. And we will always find a way to win." The stars continued to shine, cold and beautiful. And somewhere in the darkness, word was already spreading. A new species had risen. A species that had done the impossible. The primitives had won. 3 months had passed since the Valorix fleet retreated. The world was different now. Everything had changed. Admiral Taiho stood at the window of his office in Seoul, watching the sun rise over the city. The streets below were full of people going about their lives. Children walked to school. Workers hurried to their jobs. Life continued, as it always did. But there was something different in the way people moved now. They walked taller. They smiled more. They had faced the end of everything and survived. The door opened behind him, and Captain Yuna entered with a tablet in her hands. "Sir, the Valoric's envoy has arrived. She is waiting in the conference room." Tejo nodded. "Thank you, Captain. I will be there shortly." He took one last look at the sunrise before turning away. There was still much work to do. The conference room was quiet when he entered. Envoy Myra sat alone at the long table, her gray hands folded in front of her. She looked different from before. The arrogance was gone from her eyes. In its place was something that looked almost like respect. Admiral Tejo sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "The Valoric's Empire accepts your terms," Myra finally said. Her voice was soft and tired. "We will withdraw from human space. We will sign a non-aggression treaty. We will never attack your species again." Tejo nodded slowly. "And the other conditions?" "We will also release the prisoners from your outer colonies. All 3,000 of them." She paused. "We have never released prisoners before, Admiral. This is the first time in our history. There is a first time for everything." Myra looked at him with curious eyes. "How did you do it?" "Our scientists have studied the wreckage of the Dominion for weeks. They cannot understand what destroyed it. There was no energy signature, no radiation, nothing our technology could detect. It is as if the ship was killed by a ghost." Tejo smiled slightly. "It was not a ghost, Envoy. It was a rock. A rock? A very fast rock. No energy, no radiation, just mass and velocity. Your shields were designed to stop advanced weapons. You never expected anyone to attack you with something so simple." Myra was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. "We studied your species for years before the invasion. We looked at your weapons and your technology. We thought we understood you. We were wrong." She leaned forward, her black eyes searching his face. "Tell me, Admiral, why did you not surrender? Every calculation said you should lose. Every logical analysis showed that resistance was pointless. Any other species would have given up. Why did you fight?" Tejo thought about the question for a long time before answering. "Because surrender was never really an option for us," he said. "Humans do not think the way you do. We do not calculate our chances and make logical decisions. We fight for things that cannot be measured: pride, home, the people we love. You cannot predict a species that will die for something irrational." Myra nodded slowly. "I think I am beginning to understand." The treaty was signed that afternoon. It was a simple document, just a few pages of promises and agreements. But it meant everything. The Valoric's Empire, undefeated for 10,000 years, had officially surrendered to a species they had called primitives. That night, there was celebration across Earth. Fireworks lit up the sky in every city. People danced in the streets and sang songs and cried with joy. They had survived the impossible. They had won. Lieutenant Hyon watched the celebrations from a quiet rooftop in Seoul. He had been promoted to captain now, a reward for his service during the war. But he did not feel like celebrating. He was thinking about everything that had happened, about how close they had come to the end. Footsteps behind him made him turn. It was Envoy Myra, walking toward him slowly. "Captain Hyon," she said. "I was hoping to find you." Hyon was surprised. "Envoy, what are you doing here?" Myra stood beside him and looked out at the fireworks. "I wanted to understand," she said. "During our negotiations, you told me that humans are different, that you do not calculate and you do not surrender. I have thought about those words every day since then." She turned to face him. "My species has conquered hundreds of civilizations. All of them were advanced. All of them were logical. When they could not win, they gave up. It was the sensible thing to do. But you did not give up. Even when every calculation said you should lose, you kept fighting. Why? Hyan thought about the question. He thought about his mother and father. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived a war long ago. He thought about all the stories he had heard growing up, about people who refused to quit even when everything was against them. Because that is who we are, he said finally. We are a species born from struggle. Our history is full of wars and disasters and impossible odds. But somehow, we always survive. We always find a way. It is in our blood. It is in our bones. We do not know how to give up. Myra was quiet for a long time. Then she smiled, very slightly. Perhaps that is why you won, she said. Not because you were stronger or smarter, but because you simply refused to lose. Across the galaxy, word of the Valoric's defeat spread like fire. Species that had been conquered and enslaved for thousands of years heard the story and could not believe it. A young primitive civilization had done the impossible. They had stopped the unstoppable dot on 100 different worlds. Rebellion began. Slaves who had given up hope started the fight again. They whispered to each other about the humans, about the species that had said no to the Valorics and won. If the humans could do it, maybe they could too. Earth became a symbol, not of power or technology, but of something more important. Hope. General Dong Su did not live to see most of this. He died peacefully in his sleep 6 months after the war, surrounded by his family. But before he died, he gave one last interview. The reporter asked him what he thought about humanity's victory. The old general smiled. We won because they underestimated us, he said. They looked at our weapons and saw weakness. They should have looked at our history. They should have seen what we do to those who threaten our home. We have been killing each other for 100,000 years. We have invented 1,000 ways to destroy our enemies. Did they really think they could scare us? He laughed, the same rough laugh he had carried through 3 wars. The Valorics were advanced. But advancement is not everything. Sometimes the old ways are better. Sometimes a rock thrown hard enough can change the world. 1 year after the war, Admiral Tejo retired. He was tired and old, and he had done enough. He spent his last years in a small house by the sea, watching the waves and thinking about everything that had happened. Captain Yuna visited him often. She had been promoted to admiral now, leading Earth's new defense fleet. They were building more hauling platforms, preparing for whatever might come next. But she always made time to see the old man who had saved humanity. On his last day, Tejo sat on his porch and watched the sunset. Yuna was beside him, holding his hand. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked. He was quiet for a moment. We survived, he said finally. We protected our home. We gave our children a future. That is all any generation can do. The sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky red and gold. The universe is vast, Tejo said. There are many dangers out there. Many species that will see us as weak and primitive. But they will learn what the Valorics learned. We are not to be underestimated. We are human. And we will always find a way. He closed his eyes and smiled. High above, the stars began to appear, cold and ancient and beautiful. Somewhere among them, other civilizations watched Earth with new eyes. They had heard the stories. They had seen what the primitives could do, and they were afraid. The universe had learned an important lesson. Technology could be matched. Shields could be broken. Numbers could be overcome. But the human spirit, stubborn and defiant and endlessly creative in finding ways to survive, could never be defeated. They had fired one shot, and everything had changed.